And then along came the Soundcore Motion Boom Plus, and everybody was happy and delirious, and they said, "Whoa, it's the Motion Boom," and they put tweeters on. That's all we need to know. And it turned out that it wasn't all you needed to know. You actually needed to know what it sounds like. So where are we today? Yes, we're in an Alan Ross video. I know that. But the question is, my first video to review this Motion Boom Plus, there was no app support. It was I was one of the million of reviewers that got an early release. How unusual is that for Soundcore? Don't normally give any of us normal people a speaker to review, and suddenly we were all getting one. First time they tried to hype up a speaker in a big way. Was there a reason for that before anyone had a chance to hear it? So it turned out it's a bit hard on the ears. The highs were a bit off. The tweeters kind of sound on the cheap side, I've got to say. But, whoa, it went loud. Oh, it's got a thump. Oh, it's got a wallop. Well, it's not deep bass. Some of you thought maybe it's a Boombox 2 killer. No, because it doesn't do the deep bass that the Boombox 2 is all about. But it does go loud. It's got party tuning. The highs are a bit high. And that signature, they call it so-called signature tuning. And it turned out their signature tuning on this is to pull out the mids. For some reason, I thought, we're going to put it to the world. Anker Soundcore stands for no mids. And I don't remember any of us saying we want speakers with no mids. Well, that's what they gave us. And it wasn't just my ears saying that, because when we got app support and they got that little graph when you go into the app to show you what their so-called tuning is, it's got a big dip where the mids are. And they deliberately decided to do that. So we know default tuning ain't good. Some of you are well happy with it. Anyway, the other thing that happened was it was already a bit hard on the ears. Already thin and lean and aggressive. For me, a bit tiring for a long listen. But after, when you go into the app and you got an early version, you're forced to do a firmware update. So I didn't see what the original firmware update or the original firmware was for this speaker. But after updating, it added a 6 kilohertz peak that was not there in the original tuning. Bear in mind, it's already a bit hard on the ears. So what did they do? They decided they wanted a sibilance fest. We'll give them a 6 kilohertz peak, and then we'll see what happens. Well, some of you are still happy because you're listening to outdoors. You just want a party speaker. You're not doing any critical listening. You've been quite happy. But I have to say the majority, even the ones that are still happy with the speaker, have a problem with the harshness of this speaker. But it's really hard to wrap up in a single sentence, which is why I'm going to do some more videos on it, where we are with the speaker. It certainly has a place. We don't know where the price is going to land. At the moment, they're saying $180, 190 quid. I can't really see that being the end price. I think somewhere near 150 quid, $150 is where the speaker needs to be, because it's got a light weight for how loud it goes. It weighs 2.4 kilos. It's a lot lighter than you would. Oh, did you see what I did? I just revealed who I'm going to compare it to, the Sony XB43. That weighs just under 3 kilos. That's 2.4 kilos, considerably lighter than the Sony XB43. For how loud this goes, it's very light. And for the price, and what else you'd have to pay to get something else similar to go that loud, in that form factor, of course you can get your big party speakers. Party speakers we've known now as big boxes, but it's something that looks more like a traditional speaker. It has a place. Go outdoors, you want a party, you're going to be pretty happy. If you bought this because you think it's a Motion Boom, lovely deep bass, you know, you can do some critical listening with it, in as much as you could do that with any Bluetooth speaker at the end of the day. But we were disappointed. You're not going to do that with this because it's too aggressive, too upfront, too in your face. But there's a lot of genres that are going to gel well with this. And it's going to depend on your ears and your threshold. So I've given the game away. I'm going to compare it with the Sony XB43. What's that all about? How the Sony... I don't think we've seen this for about a year. Not on my channel. The reason is it's not that exciting. I can't say anything bad about it other than it weighs a lot more than it needs to weigh. Nearly 3 kilos. No, there's no strap. I haven't got a strap here, but you can add a strap. It comes with a strap, as well as a handy handle. Oh, no pun intended. But nothing. No handle or strap for the Sony XB. I'm just checking in case I got that one wrong. No, definitely you're going to have to pick that up with one hand. If you're on the smaller side, that may be a little bit heavy. Certainly if you got a bit of arthritic hands going on. But it's a very safe speaker. I think it still has a place, but I rarely listen to it because there's just so many other options. You probably won't have 100 speakers like I've got on your shelf. And you'll be quite happy with it. It's never going to sound absolutely fantastic. It's never going to shake the floor with its deep bass. It's never going to sound terrible. It's a very, very safe speaker. So I recommend it for multi-genres if you do that kind of listening. Or you're not really sure of what you want. The Sony XB43 is never going to let you down. It's just never going to be the best kid on the block. So we're going to go straight in. Here's the thing. This is a loud speaker. I'm never going to be able to match the volumes. So there's no point in me doing a low volume test. This is very bass heavy at low volumes. The sort of volumes I think you're going to start listening, because I think you'll start listening from about 60%. If you listen any lower than that, it's probably not the speaker for you in the first place. This is not for low level listening. So the point is 60% on my Motion Boom Plus is about 85%. In fact, it's a bit more, but obviously all these speakers start to relatively reduce bass, and actually reduce bass, the limit bass after 80%. And it wouldn't be a fair test if I was going too loud. So as far as I can go, it's going to be about 85% to keep it a fair test. I am normalising. I do normalise. Always get that in the comments. It's called listening to two speakers at the same loudness level, called a fair comparison. So 60% versus 85%. Comparison.
Trying when you live in black and white. I can take one more lie. Never thought someone could have so much to hide. We were so close, where did the love go? Lost on desire. Now we tiptoe into the unknown, walking all night on thin ice. All night on thin ice. Tug of war, tug of war. We tiptoe into the unknown. We were so close, where did the love go? Lost on desire. Now we tiptoe into the unknown, walking all night on thin ice. Jumping around like da 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 da. No one's gonna stop us now. Jumping around like da 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 da. No one's gonna stop us now. 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 Everybody likes to lose their mind sometimes. It's nice. Everybody feels a little broken inside, and that's alright. Sometimes you need someone to love you, even if you can't see their face. Sometimes you need an easy escape. What's lost if we stay in this place? Jumping around like da 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 da. No one's gonna stop us now. Jumping around like da 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 da. No one's gonna stop us now. 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 Jumping around.
The XB43 simply can't compete in terms of the bass. It's rolling off really early, 90 Hz, the yellow line. About the same overall in terms of the mids and the highs. It's just the upper bass where the XB43 basically relies on for all of its bass. It's just a tad above the Motion Boom Plus in its custom mode. We overlay the original track. overall, it's the Motion Boom Plus that has the most consistent sound signature, albeit that massive 6 kHz peak. And the XB43 simply outgunned here.
So, adjusting for volume to get them the same loudness. Overall, mids are about the same, highs are about the same. There's not much in it. The biggest difference you will hear, I certainly hear, is the bass. It is huge difference because there is no deep bass on the Sony XB43. Overall deep bass, 8 decibels down. Remember, 3 decibels is like doubling the power. 8 decibels is a massive difference. So, although this doesn't do deep bass, there's a big roll-off from 60, 65 hertz down. It does sound like a deep bass monster against the Sony XB43. And as I said, that's the thing about the Sony XB43. It's never going to shake your floor, excite the life out of you. It's just going to be really, it's never going to sound terrible. There's some speakers you can't say that about. And that can, with really bright recordings that are not bass heavy, because this is all about bass really to get the best out of it, that can sound pretty bad, to the point where it's not something I can't really listen to. I'm not talking about parties, I'm talking about critical listening. That's what I'm saying. There are times where that can sound bad. It's times where it can sound brilliant. But this is never going to be brilliant, and it's never going to be awful. Isn't that a good trade-off? Other issues, it's got a 6 kHz peak. That didn't need to be there. That's not nice. But then 12 kHz peak. We see this a lot, 12, 13 kHz peaks on these speakers. Is it just my ears? For me, it don't work. In theory, it's going to add some air to recordings. It's like you're going to listen to these speakers for that sort of thing. But that's the theory. To me, it just gives it an electronic nature to the sound. I don't know why they do it. But we see this from the likes of JBL as well. So there's going to be times where that's simply too edgy for you, and the safety net that is the Sony XB43 may work for you. But they're very, very different speakers. But this is a comparison between the two of them. We want to know how loud do they go. I've already said that's a loud speaker. Maybe the Sony XB43 is the world's loudest speaker and can even beat the Soundcore Motion Boom Plus.
I think the girls with their nails done now. Girls with their nails done. I think the girls with their nails done. Girls with their nails done. I think the girls with their nails done now. Girls with their nails done. I think the girls with their nails done. Girls with their girls with their nails done now. Girls with their nails done now.
Motion Boom Plus in custom mode is 4 decibels louder than XB43. It's louder everywhere. We just have the issue of the big 6 kHz peak as usual. The XB43 actually tails off after 6 kHz. See, the original track actually has a rise at that very point.
Not much I can say. It's 4 decibels quieter. It sounds thin. It sounds bass-like by comparison. If it's all about loud volumes, that's going in the bin. That's going on your travels. I was going to say the mantelpiece, but you don't really want to listen to it indoors. I think it's going to work better outdoors, but it is a party tuning. It's not for critical listening. And if you listen to your jazz and your classical music and all that sort of thing, you're going to be, I think, quite disappointed. The balance isn't there, even though overall, with my custom EQ, did I even say I'm using custom EQ now, which I couldn't in my first video. I said we've now got an app you can use to somewhat tame it, but you can't do nothing for that 6 kHz peak. If you want to touch that using their app, you're relying on the 5 kHz band, the 9 kHz band, but then you're going to lose where you don't. It's very hard to get that right. But overall, that's actually not an unbalanced tuning, but it still sounds incredibly punchy, incredibly aggressive, incredibly in your face. For a lot of people, you're going to love that. And a lot of people are going to hate that. It's going to be a really divisive speaker. into the long term with the Motion Boom Plus. It's going to go a long way to helping everything if and when they get rid of that 6 kHz peak. It wasn't there in the original firmware. They decided to put it there in the newest firmware. By the way, Sony are one of those people who claim 20 Hz to 20 kHz for every one of their speakers. Well, that would be brilliant. You're doing well to get a subwoofer going down to 20 Hz. Never mind what they're telling you about their speakers. That, specs. Just ignore the specs sometimes. They tell you in the specs it's got X-balanced drivers. Absolutely fantastic. I've always wanted X-balance. What's saying X-balance? Oh, it's what they're taking the round driver. It's a big thing now to give us oval racetrack, very, very fast drivers, and they X-balance, and it's not quite oval. So it's like an oval, but more of a diamond. No, it's a triangular racetrack kind of thing. What they're saying is they're increasing the amount of surface area given the same size unit that they can put in. So if you had a round driver, it would have less surface area, then they've extended it along. A lot of it, weirdly, is about marketing. Let's go over all of the specs, just get this comparison done, because you know where you are. Very, very different speakers, very safe, but it's never going to shake your world. And as that's in today's world, at 3 kilos for heavy speakers, that's something you're going to get. Whereas I can certainly recommend that as a loud speaker for 150 quid. Well, 190 quid the same, but I think you do well to find it without a discount. I wouldn't be paying full price for that if I was you, but there's no real alternative for the. If your ears can take the harshness of those highs, for how loud it goes and the punch that it has, I mean, it would knock you out. I mean, Mike Tyson in his prime would probably struggle in a fight with this speaker. So of course, both made in China. You can pick this up for about 150 quid, $174. The Boom Plus, 190 quid, retail max $180. 46 watt hours. I'm already getting complaints about the battery life on this. You got to remember, the louder you play it and the more bass heavy the speaker is, along with if you're playing bass heavy tracks, you're going to get less battery life out of it. That's the trade-off for having a bass heavy speaker. Having said that, 46.1 watt hours was not that much bigger than the half the size Motion Boom. It could have been a bigger battery, to be honest. But I'm getting people telling me they're doing 50% volume and they're getting about 5 to 6 hours, which is not great. 36 watt hours, but it's a smaller speaker and it's not going anywhere near as loud, so you probably get more battery life. But that's the thing with Sony. You get more battery life. Do you know why? Because without even asking if you want to, as the battery drains, you'll start getting a reduction in volume, so gradual that your ears probably won't even perceive it. But that's what they do. How do you know? I measured it. Gradual reduction volume. It looks like you're getting a fantastic battery life, but they're all using the same technology. I keep telling you about these batteries. There's nothing magical in the batteries and saying, well, that's good. What do they advertise? 20 hours or something for these speakers? But it's ridiculous. At what volume? With what kind of tracks? Bluetooth 5 on the Sony XB43, Bluetooth 5.3 for the Boom Plus. They both do stereo bang, and you can hook up 100 plus of each of these speakers, because that's Partycast 2, and that's what Sony call Party Connect, and it's not the old wireless party chain. Remember, you've got to have compatible speakers to use those features. I keep asking, has anybody hooked up 100 plus speakers? Both got USB-C connections, both got auxiliary inputs, both can be used as a power bank, both can be used as a phone speaker. Forget the watts, but if you really want to know, I think they say 50 watts. I've got it down as 40 watts, but I think it's not even 40 watts and 80 watts. But what are they measuring? We don't know. And give us the RMS. At a minimum, give us the RMS. They both will take 15 watts as their charging. We talked about the weights. Both IP67. The 6 means dustproof. The 7 means 1 meter of water for 30 minutes. But here's the kicker. The Motion Boom will float, but the Sony XB43 will sink to the bottom of wherever you are. If it's more than 1 meter, you're in trouble. So we've got these X-balanced drivers. They are 61 millimeters by 68 millimeters. There's a pair of them, and they got tweeters. Yes, they got tweeters. But as we're already finding out, having tweeters is not the be-all and end-all of how the speaker is going to sound. We've got 20 millimeter tweeters actually on both. We've got 20 millimeter tweeters on the XB43. 25 millimeter tweeters on the Boom Plus. Both, of course, on the ends have 2 passive radiators. Here's where you get really, 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 really excited when I'm going to say it's got titanium drivers, but it's also got neodymium magnet. Both these things are missing from the Sony XB43. That's one of the reasons no neodymium magnets. It's going to be a lot heavier. The Motion Boom Plus, give it its credit where its credit is due. 33 milliseconds was my result, streaming on YouTube. That is fantastic. That's as good as it gets. That is as good as it gets. You won't notice lip sync issues at that, but we're talking about 80 milliseconds. That's right on the border of where you're going to start noticing issues and it can start being annoying, but it is usable. They both have an app. They both got EQ in the app. I have used custom on both of them. The custom EQ works much better on Soundcore because it is more like, it's not complete, it's not a proper graphic equalizer, but it's close to a proper graphic equalizer. Whereas the Sony XB43 has a JBL-like 3-band slider. I can't even laughingly call it a graphic equalizer. It's an algorithm-driven balancer. You can change the overall signature of the sound, but it will do different things at different volumes, and it will balance. So you may be putting the bass slider up, but it will adjust the mids and the highs to work within its own limits, so it sounds like it's more bass-heavy. So I call it algorithm-driven. It's not. That's close to a graphic equalizer. That isn't. That's been the roundup. I don't think I've missed much out. I'm just gonna check my notes that are here, what you need to know. I think I've done a good job on this one. I think I've told you everything I've got down here, apart from it's got power IQ. That's for the charge out. So what does that mean? It's like, so it can know if something supports faster charging, then you will get faster charging using the power bank facility within the Anker Soundcore. That's no coincidence, because of course Anker, what do they sell? They sell power chargers. So that's pretty much a roundup. This is going to stand for a long, long time as a divisive speaker. There'll be channels that tell you, I'm already getting it. I'm quite flattered. You keep going, oh, you're the only one that's telling us the negatives. Now, I don't know if that's good or bad. Obviously, we've all got different opinions, and this is a speaker where you may legitimately say it sounds fantastic, and you could equally legitimately say it's awful and you can't listen to it, and I know why on both accounts. So it's careful. You need to just know what you're buying it for. If you want something to go loud, at a good price, at a lightweight, that's not for critical listening, that's not for indoors and listening to light tracks or classical music or anything like that, even jazz I would not listen to on this, but you just want to go bang, 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 bang. You want to feel like you had a fight with Mike Tyson. It's going to do the job. Probably do the job, anything better than that I've personally got, that I've tried so far. I've not tried everything. There's too many speakers out there. But on that basis, it's a good speaker. But for me, never going to listen to it indoors. It's too tiring and too jarring on the ears. They could easily tame that within limits with future firmware. But I just feel that the tweeters are not very good. And they're never going to sound good because they're cheap tweeters, and that's why cheap tweeters are cheap. They're not on the ears. If you know what you're listening for, they're not going to sound as nice as more expensive tweeters, and that's why people pay more money for more expensive tweeters. The clue is in what I just said. So that's been the comparison. I hope you watch more of my videos down the road, and thank you for watching this one.
I ain't about that life. I ain't about that life. Ain't no project wife, got my logic right, cause I'm not your type. I ain't about that life. I ain't about that life. Sorry, ma, I ain't get it right. I'ma just live my life. I ain't about that. I ain't about that life.